which is unpaid labor.
Yeah.
So if you take the formal urban sectors, you don't find many girls, although they are very qualified, they are very bright. So my message to everyone in Pakistan is that please allow your daughters, your sisters, your mothers to invest themselves in the human capital, and then that human capital should be used for the betterment of the country. Otherwise, 50% of our population is not making any contribution. So you are not generating the kind of incomes which you require for improvement of the living standards. And Bangladesh, you see, they were like us till 1971. The females are doing extremely well, and that's why Bangladesh is doing so well.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
So we've discussed educational reforms, environment ko kaise protect karna and all. What do you think is sort of like the driving force behind this? Because aapki jo book hai, Governing the Ungovernable, you've talked a lot about institutions, and you've compared countries like Bangladesh in there as well. So what do you think is Pakistan's sort of stance that it should be taking right now?
There are 3 or 4 drivers of economic and social progress. One is that you must have political stability. You cannot have 18 prime ministers from 1999 to 2024, because every time a new prime minister comes in, he abandons everything which was done in the past and starts from the scratch. And by the time in the middle of 2 years, he is removed and somebody else comes. So there is no political stability. When there is no political stability, the private sector does not feel very confident to invest, because they don't know what the policies are going to be under the new prime minister or after him. So they're very shy. And unless you invest in your industry, in your agriculture, in your services sector, you're not going to have a higher incomes, because investment is the driving force for the GDP growth, right? So you need political stability so that the businesses are confident that they can do well as far as their own investments are concerned. The second is that you must have strong institutions of governance. That means people are selected to become the chief executives of our institutions or the heads of our institution based on merit and performance, rather than just having some connections with some political leaders or some MNAs or MPAs. China is a very good example, where although it is a communist party, it's a one-party rule, but all the positions at the provincial level, at the county level, at the town level, at the village level are selected on the basis of merit alone. So the promotions are also made on the basis of merit. And look at what China has been able to do it. Unless we strengthen our institutions, because if you have the right person, the right job, the whole institution will actually do well. But if you're a wrong person, then the institution will dysfunction. So that is the number 2, that you must have the institutions. Number 3 is that you have to invest in human resources. That 60% is our literacy rate. That means that 40% of our population is not really equipped to contribute in any field they are. So an illiterate farmer is producing maybe, I would say, 30 months of wheat. But a literate farmer says, I know how much inputs we have to apply, at what time we have to apply. I have to listen to the weather forecast, and therefore he takes the informed decision. He may have a small land holding, but because he's literate and his antenna are quite up, he does better than the other one who is illiterate. So I've seen farmers in the same ecological zone, where one literate farmer is producing 35 mons and the illiterate farmer is producing only 25 or 30 mons. Imagine if you had illiterate farmers, our average national yields would be much higher and we will be quite self-sufficient. We don't have to import wheat, we don't have to import sugar, we have to import palm oil. So what I'm saying is that the human capital is very, very important as far as the investment is concerned. And finally, the fourth element is that we have to absorb, assimilate, and apply new technological tools. We should not be afraid that now artificial intelligence is coming in, so we will be jobless. No, it's a human being which should be using the artificial intelligence. So we should try to equip ourselves with the basic tools which will allow us to use the technological advances for the benefit of the country and for the nation. So these are the driving forces, in my view, which should inform our policy in the future.
Yep, makes sense. So you talked about how like institutions and all of those really are very like an integral role of growth.
Right.
और उसके लिए आपने political stability की भी बात की. So a lot of people have this misconception maybe कि oh we only achieve growth when we have foreign aid coming in या फिर when we're not under military dictatorship and all. So because you worked under a lot of governments and आपको सबका experience है, to what extent do you think that is true or is not?
It's not true.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense when people talk about that.
Yeah.
Because no country in the world has been on what I call crutches of the foreign assistance and taking off. We have been going to the IMF for the last 24 times.
Yeah.
We haven't improved.
Yeah.
But before 1988, we went to IMF maybe only one or twice. But at that time, we were growing by 6% per annum, one of the fastest developing countries. India was way behind us.
Yeah.
So look, in a period where you were depending on the foreign aid, you have performed poorly. But when you didn't have foreign aid, much of foreign aid, then you were doing quite well because there were reforms by successive governments in order to improve the productive capacity of the economy. Unless you improve the productive capacity of the economy, all this money which comes from the foreign aid will disappear with no contribution as far as improvement of the economy is concerned. So I don't buy that. I think we have to stand on our own feet. But we should use foreign capital, FDI, technology, managerial practices, marketing, in order to sell our goods. So I'm very much in favor of FDI, foreign direct investment, but as a vehicle for absorbing technology, best practices of managerial performance and international marketing links. To that extent, foreign direct investment is right. But aid per se is driven by the agenda of the donors. That's not driven by the agenda of the country. So I'm very much opposed, and I'm very happy that US no longer provides aid to Pakistan. A lot of people say, oh, the mulk to khatam ho jayega agar hame American aid nahi milegi. But look, we have to do things which are right for our own selves.
So you've talked a lot about human capital along with meritocracy and all. So Jesse, you said, 60% of the population is literate, like, and 40% is not. That sort of shows the economic inequality that's sort of like very evident in Pakistan today as well. So to what extent do you think like government abhi iske upar kuch kar sakti hai? Like instead of sort of like, kyunki ye bahut idealistic baat bhi hai ki everybody's going to have equal outcomes and all.
You cannot have that.
Yeah. So equal opportunities.
Equal opportunities is the right word, but not the equal outcomes. The outcome is a function of the opportunity as well as your own effort. So, for example, in your class, you will have your colleagues, some of them are working very hard, very seriously, and some of them are relaxing and they're not doing well. You cannot imagine that all of them will have the equal outcomes. That's not possible. But we should have equal opportunities. So my take is that like the Benazir Income Support Program, we should provide cash transfers to the poor households. But at the same time, ask them to send their children to school, to have good nutrition, to have the vocational training for the adults. So it is a package deal. So you are actually improving their employability, but at the same time helping them to sustain their living standards. Otherwise, they will be starving. So social protection is the basis for poverty eradication, but at the same time, you have to give them the tool in order to invest in their generation, the new generation of the children, to improve their skill sets, improve their educational standards, and then they will do well. So that is how social protection as well as the training and education, they combine will improve people from poverty to, middle class. And that's what most of the countries have done.
Yep, yeah. So you mentioned like targeted cash programs, जैसे Benazir income support program है. So a lot of debate has been about like whether or not Pakistan should have something like a universal basic income program. So with either of those, to what extent do you think like हमारे taxes को फर्क पड़ेगा और कितना
I'm
पड़ना
not
चाहिए?
in support, because if I can afford to pay for, all the services, utilities, electricity, gas, because my income allows them to pay without subsidy, I don't want universal basic income. But those poor people who do not have the opportunities, I think this money of subsidies should go to them. And that is the fair, distribution of the burden. And I should pay taxes because I'm earning so much, and most of the taxes should be used for human capital, for infrastructure, and for social protection. That is a bargain I am in favor of. But why should there be universal basic income? Because I don't think that has succeeded anywhere, or this is going to succeed in this country. So we have to be very careful about these prescriptions.
So you've discussed a lot of like reforms that ought to be brought, or like Pakistan को ये लाने चाहिए if we want any growth in the long run. लेकिन आपको क्या लगता है, like अभी पाकिस्तान के क्या prospects लग रहे हैं? How much of this do you think is going to be feasible in the coming generation?
These are feasible, but there should be a consensus and willingness to implement it. We have all the right strategy papers, we have right policies, we have a lot of thinking as far what is wrong with the country and what can be done. And we know the prescriptions and we know the solutions to our problems, but we are not seriously doing anything in order to continue. You cannot have a 5-year electoral cycle to expect that there will be, a takeoff. It is a long haul. So one country, one party comes to power. If they do well, they should be allowed to be elected next time. And in next 10 years, we will better off because you have continuity of the economic policies. And that is what my plea is, that we should give chances to the people on the basis of their political performance rather than anything else.
Yep, definitely. So lastly, I just wanted to ask, like, what would be your advice to kids and children just around Pakistan who want to make a difference in the world, be it through like poverty alleviation, environment, their education sector, whatever it is?
Whatever profession they choose for themselves, they must work hard and not go for the shortcuts. That you cram up the material given by your teachers, you reproduce that at the examination, or you do cheating at the examination, you get a degree and you think you have done well. Future is bleak for these people. Those who work hard, they absorb the knowledge and they apply that knowledge to solve the problems of this country, they are going to be successful. There is no shortcut for success. It is a long haul. And I can tell you from my own experience that people who were not brightest, who were mediocres, but they remained honest, they worked hard, they did not indulge in any shortcuts, they had a much better future than those bright young men and women who wanted to do the shortcuts, who were dishonest, who were corrupt. Their careers were spoiled. So my message is there is no substitute